One of the worst parts about being a physical media collector is over the years, all the awesome stores that we've lost. I wanted to spend the day talking about Hastings. If you guys follow me on the old Blu-ray Outlaw page, I had so many out and about that I filmed on Hastings, and I wish now I still had those videos because I would have just liked to have had to have the footage that I shot inside of Hastings, because when I was going to film this, it is so hard to find anything related to Hastings. Even on Google, finding pictures of Hastings was not an easy chore, especially for my local Hastings. I found that as time goes on, we lose more and more of these physical media stores. I thought it would be cool today to reflect and look back on some of the cool stuff I picked up over at Hastings. Now, unfortunately, I can only find four things I still have in my collection from those Hastings journeys I went on. I thought it would be a fun little video. I'm just trying to find some content ideas and stuff, and I like to reflect a lot. And I was thinking, when I look back on my collecting, when I think about like Suncoast was my first place I ever went to, that's where I kind of incorporate my VHS collection to, with Suncoast. And that's mainly VHS, starting to transition over to DVD, which is where I usually used to use Walmart and Suncoast. When I think about Hastings, I think about Blu-rays. I think about taking all my DVDs in and transferring them over to get the Blu-rays. I think about Screen Factory. I think about, all the good times I had there. So I just wanted to show some of the movies I had left from my collection and just tell some fun Hastings stories. Now, if you're not familiar with Hastings, Hastings was like a super big FYE, but affordable. Hastings had everything. They had vinyl records, they had CDs, they had CD singles, they had VHS, I pre-ordered the Halloween Resurrection VHS there years ago. They had DVDs, Blu-rays, video games, board games, books. They had a coffee shop. They had everything. And on top of all of that, you could also trade stuff in. My main memory with Hastings is when for some reason, I remember one night I wanted to watch Jaws, and I didn't have Jaws for some reason on DVD. And I went to go buy it, and all they had it was on Blu-ray. And so I ended up buying the Blu-ray. I was very anti Blu-ray. I had over 2,000 DVDs, and I remember watching Jaws on Blu-ray and being floored. And then I went and bought a better TV. I bought like a Walmart Hisense 55-inch TV. I put in Friday the 13th, um, or I put in Jaws on Blu-ray, watched it, was blown away. And then I went and bought the Friday the 13th 10, and I watched Friday the 13th on Blu-ray. And I had made my mind up at that point that I was going to just go full Blu-ray. So I started taking my DVDs in 500 at a time to Hastings, accumulated a lot of store credit, and started making the jump to Blu-ray. I got very fair credit. So I wanted to show you guys some of the Blu-rays I had picked up at Hastings that I remember the most. First, we're going to start off with one of my favorites. This is the first theater experience I ever remember, and that is Hulk Hogan and No Holds Barred playing the character Rip. Now, looking back on this movie and watching it now, I still really enjoy this movie. Why they didn't just call him Hulk Hogan in the movie, I don't know. They kept the World Wrestling Federation. They kept the WWF Winged Eagle belt. If you're a wrestling fan, you know what I'm talking about. Everything was basically the same. Jesse Ventura was Jesse Ventura. So I'm not really sure. I'm sure it had something to do with not wanting to pay him, maybe. I don't know. But for whatever reason, Hulk Hogan in this movie was by a character by the name of Rip. I picked this up at Hastings, I want to say for like $6.99. And this Blu-ray, I'm pretty sure, is way out of print. Think about this. I think about the joy of walking into Hastings because I had this on VHS at the time. I didn't have the DVD. And I remember just walking and thinking like, man, when I saw this, that Blu-ray had all these awesome movies. That some of them didn't have DVDs, or that I knew of that had DVDs. So I bought No Holds Barred, watched it. I still watch this one pretty much annually. And like I said, this is my very first theater experience that I can remember as a kid. I was a huge Hulk Hogan fan, still am. So yeah, when I think of this, I always think of Hastings, and just walking in and finding this for $6.99. As a fan of physical media, it is so much more enjoyable to walk into an establishment and find these and pick these up and smell them and see. There's more of a story with them. Where it's when you buy something off Amazon, it's heartless. It just comes in the mailbox. You go and pick it up. It doesn't have that same sense of adventure that like going into a brick and mortar store has. So I always think of this fondly, and I've where my collection has gotten smaller. I've always I would never get rid of this anyways. But even if this gets a 4K, I'm going to keep this one just because of the nostalgia with it. So when I first started my page as Blu-ray Outlaw, I just assumed everybody had this and everybody had the same love for this, and that is Ernest Scared Stupid. Now, what's funny about this is I sent this to at least 4 or 5 different people in the YouTube movie community back in the day. This is probably 2015 or 2016. I didn't even know this was out of print. This was in the Hastings dump bin for $5. I still have this. This has survived. This actually does have some pretty significant water damage. You really can't see on the back, but it's all wrinkly. Um, but I can't get rid of this, man. This is one of my favorite movies. This is the first like Halloween horror comedy thing I showed the kids. I love this movie. Anytime I went to my cousin's house and we saw this VHS, we rented it. It was always a good, like if we watched a really scary movie, we would throw this in afterwards and kind of like reset our brains when you're kids and the movies are a little scary. I love this movie. I think that Jim Varney was a national treasure. I have always enjoyed like watching YouTube videos about the kind of man he was and how good he was to kids, and I just can't say enough good things about this. I think that this is the perfect Halloween movie. I think that as far as like if you have kids and you want to show them a Halloween film, I stand by this. This has got the horror in it. It's got comedy. It mishmashes them so well. It doesn't lean too much into either, but it does it just perfectly enough that you have a fun Halloween watch that you can watch with your kids, your grandma, whoever. I watch this every year around Halloween time without fail, and I have like my Halloween video or my Halloween viewing start in September, and the further we get into the season, there's more of like the special Halloween ones for me. This one is late October, right before a Halloween. I hold it up there with Halloween, Halloween 3, Trick or Treat. I think it's that good, and I think that if you have a chance to see this, you should get it. And I'm so happy that not only is this one of my favorite movies of all time, but I got this from Hastings, and I was able to send copies of this out to other creators from Hastings. So everything that I'm about to show you, the other two, this one is the most special just because it is Ernest Scared Stupid and it is from Hastings. So this will be in my collection forever. And if you haven't, by some chance, not seen Ernest Scared Stupid, I highly recommend it. It would be impossible for me to make a Hastings video and not talk about Scream Factory. The only reason I upgraded to Blu-ray was Scream Factory. I've said this many times. My very first purchase after I transferred some of my DVDs was Pumpkinhead. I went home. I watched it with my friend. We were blown away with it. And I remember saying there was an end cap of these Scream Factories, and I'm going to go get another one tomorrow. I have all this. I remember, I wish I could go back in time because I had like $500 or $600 in store credit, and I was just picking these up one at a time. And I would go one day and it would be there, and the next day it wouldn't. I went and got this the next day. I had this on DVD. I've had this on VHS, and that is George Romero's Day of the Dead. Kind of gave me the inspiration to make this video as I'm currently watching the new 4K restoration of Day of the Dead from Scream Factory. And this movie right here, as much I love Pumpkinhead, but this movie, when I bought Pumpkinhead and this back to back, this is what made me go, okay, I'm going all in with Scream Factory. I'm buying everything I see. I love the artwork. I love the slips. I used to actually be a guy with the slip covers. I would just tear them up and get rid of them. Screen Factory was what made me keep the slips, just because you could do this right here. You could have the original artwork on the inside and this beautiful artwork on the outside, and I still stand by that. I think that this is the um, one of the better Screen Factory artworks, especially from the Blu-rays, the blue border, and that brings back so much nostalgia too. If you started collecting the Screen Factories from back in the day, you know what I'm talking about. This one's very special to me, and I will keep this edition just because me and my dog Hogan. If you guys remember Blu-ray Outlaws page, my Blu-ray Outlaw page, I would do out and abouts with Hogan, my dog, who's no longer with us sadly, and this is the last thing I have left from those adventures. So I love this. This has got some great stuff on here, including the World's End documentary, which is also on the 4K, which if you haven't seen, I highly recommend. But I cannot not make a video about Hastings and not show a Screen Factory. And believe it or not, this is not my favorite Hastings purchase, or my favorite Hastings Screen Factory purchase, at least. I'm about to show you that next, but really excited about this Day of the Dead. And I just, when I see this, I immediately think of Hastings and Hogan. So I got to keep this. My favorite Screen Factory purchase, about, I had ran out of store credit at the time because you have to understand, as much as I was getting, I was trading in a DVD, which they were giving more than most places, but these Blu-rays were more expensive. A DVD at that time, the average price of a DVD, for a used DVD was like $5.99 to $10. And then a new DVD, you might get, a newer release DVD might be $20 as well. Blu-rays usually at Hastings, you could get them sometimes for $19.99 on Screen Factories, but most Screen Factories were $24.99 to $29.99 depending on how new they were. I walked into Hastings and I will never forget seeing this on the shelf and I had no idea this was coming out. This movie is one of my favorite memories of all time. I went and saw this in theaters, and I remember seeing this, and I remember seeing the other movie that came out that day, and they were both $36.99 a piece. And at that time, and I'm trying to think back, that is the most I ever spent on a new release Blu-ray. And I am talking about Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight. One of my favorite horror movies of all time. One of my favorite horror soundtracks of all time. I went and saw this in theaters with my friend Matt, and I immediately think of how ignorant we were because we sat on the very front row. This is back before they had assigned seating. You could sit wherever you want. I saw this in Bordello of Blood, and I purchased them both without hesitation. And I remember walking out, and I ran into a friend as I was leaving, and he said, "Man, you paid $36.99 a piece for those." And I remember being like, "Yeah, man." Like, it was just like, why would you even ask? Of course I did. These are great films. This one still holds up. I don't love Bordello of Blood nowhere near as much as Demon Knight. I think Demon Knight is so much more fun. You get an incredible performance from Billy Zane, who is just all over the place bonkers. I love the story. I love the religious aspects of it. I'm a huge Crypt Keeper fan. I actually was Crypt Keeper for Halloween the year that I think I was 11 or 12. And if I can find a picture, I'll post it here. But I just love this movie, and it's when I think about Hastings, and I think about one of my favorite memories. It was going in there, grabbing this and Bordello of Blood. I took both of them home that day, and I remember watching them both, going through the bonus features, and just having the best time. And I know that this will probably at some point get a 4K, and that's fine. But I think that this is peak Screen Factory artwork. And what I say is, it's very simple. You have the black background, you have the Demon Knight font, and then you have this artwork right here. And the way it's pieced together like a puzzle is just perfect, with the Crypt Keeper looking over. And I'll be honest with you, the price never, dawned on me that I just paid $80 for two Blu-rays. I just remember loving this so much, and it's still one of my favorite horror movies of all time. Definitely in my top 20. I watch this at least. I try to watch it yearly, but yeah. Tales from Crypt Demon Night, my favorite Screen Factory purchase from Hastings. So guys, there it is. I'm trying to find new ideas for content. I've been wanting to make this video for quite some time. I know these videos aren't as popular as the haul videos, but I gotta find some other stuff to add to the page. Let me know down below if you guys have a favorite Hastings purchase, if you guys even remember Hastings. And as always, guys, thank you for hitting that subscribe button. We are currently at like 1,065 subscribers, which is awesome. Closing in on 1,100. I appreciate you all so much for the support. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you'll know when all the videos go live. Farewell from the movie bunker. Let's have a moment of silence for our dearly departed Hastings. And until next time, I'll see you at the movies.